Hi, welcome to GradStats 2024 Lab Series. In Lab 1, we will be working with data, and this lab builds your skills for using the SPSS interface for some basic tasks. We're going to import a CSV data file, explore and clean the data, evaluate internal consistency of skill items, and create skill level variables. Materials you'll need include the Survey 2024 Lab1 CSV data file and the codebook from SPSS Survival Guide, and links to these are in the description. So download these items and let's get started. So when you first open SPSS, you're likely going to get the welcome screen. What I tend to do is just put don't show this dialog box in the future because I don't really use this much. So closing this, when you don't have the dialog screen first, SPSS opens to this blank data editor window, which is where we want to be. The materials you're needing for this lab are the CSV and also the codebook for the survey.save data set. Before we start importing the CSV, we're going to adjust some of the defaults on this SPSS so that we're all on the same page as we go through the labs. So what I want you to do is go to Edit and Options. And this will bring our Options dialog window open. In this General tab, make sure Display Names is indicated instead of Display Labels. And you also want your variable list in file order. Then we'll move to the Viewer tab. In the Viewer tab, make sure this checkbox down here that says Display Commands in the log is checked. That's what puts your syntax into the output file. Then we'll go to the Data tab. Here, put your decimal places at 0. And that's all on that one. And then on Output, we're going to put names on outline labeling, and then in the second, the variable values, put values and labels in that second drop down. And then the same for pivot table labeling, that the first one should be names and the second one values and labels. Next is pivot tables. Here, when you have this copy and wide tables to the clipboard, put it to shrink width to fit. Thinking that might help us in getting our tables into APA format when we're going from SPSS to Word. And then that is it. You can hit OK there, and that will save your settings for future work in SPSS as well on the computer you're on right now. It also starts your output window. Next, we're going to import the data. And instead of having y'all, type in many lines of data, I wanted you to just get more experience actually importing a data file. Go to File, Import Data, and CSV Data. This opens up your dialog box to choose where you've put the data at, and that's wherever you saved the CSV file when you downloaded it. And it's survey_2024 Lab1 CSV. This gives us our little dialog box, and you want to make sure that the first line contains variable names is checked. The delimiter between values is comma. That's why it's a comma separated values file. And we are ready. So now we have a populated data window. This is variable view, and we can switch over to data view. Now the first thing that we have to do is check over the data to make sure that it imported correctly. So this is part of data cleaning. For example, ID is just the case ID for a case for a participant without using their name. So it's not really a scale variable, it's a nominal variable. So we need to fix the measurement of this one to nominal. Whoops, got the wrong one. Sex is a nominal, and we want to put in labels in here so that when we look at the data file later, we know what's what. And the labels, as well as getting an idea as to what measure should be used, are going to be in the survey codebook that you should have already downloaded. I'm going to scroll down to the third page on this, where it tells us the variable name, the SPSS name, and then what any more details about for coding instructions. So the ID is just an identification number. So that's what I'm going to put right here in the label. Cool. For our categorical variables like sex, marital status, if someone has a child, they are going to be nominal, but we also have to indicate their values. And what do I mean by that? Well, first I can go ahead and put that this is sex, or if you want to put gender, that's fine. And the values for this are in your code book. 1 is males, 2 is females. So we'll go to that. 1 is males, and 2 is females. And it may be that your value labels dialog box looks a little different. I believe I'm running, let's see, I'm running version 27 here, and I know we're up to 29, and the value labels box looks a little different in 29, but that's okay. You basically put in your number and what the label is, and when you're done filling all those in, you hit OK. And for age, we don't have to worry about labels because it's a scale variable. So this is just age. Whereas all these others, from marital through smoke, all of those are categorical variables, and we need to fill in their labels and their values according to the codebook. So we'll work on that real quick. Okay, now that we have our labels in and our scale of measurement set for these first 9 variables, we're ready to look at these others. All of these others are item level for the scales we'll be creating. And in the codebook, we can see that the Optimism scale is from OP1 to OP6 on a agreement Likert scale from 1 to 5. So all of these can be considered continuous variables or scale level instead of nominal. So what we're going to do is set this to scale, there. Okay, so when I right click on it, then I get the shortcut menu that says copy. But I have to right click on it, not click on it and then try to get it. I have to just right click the first time on it, hit copy, and then I drag to get the rest of these because all the rest can be scale level. And now I'm right click and paste, and that worked good. I don't need to fill in all these labels here for the item level because we're going to be making skill level scores anyway. So this is a good place to save your data set, and you'll be saving the output too. So you want to give it a name that makes sense for when you have to turn in files. You can say Lab1 survey, and it's going to save it as an SAV file because that's what a data set file is in SPSS, is SAV. We can also save the output file so that we don't lose track of it. Lab1 output, and make sure you put it in the same place where you're keeping all of your grad stats files. And that's going to save as an SPV file because that's the extension for output files in SPSS. Okay, next thing we want to do is check out this internal consistency. What is the internal reliability of the Optimism scale? We'll start with that one. In the codebook, we know that the Optimism scale is OP1 to OP6, and we need to see the internal consistency of those items. Do they hang together well? However, if you scroll down to the next page on how total scores are computed, coded, then you'll see in Total Optimism we have 3 items that need to be reverse coded. So to do this in SPSS, we need to recode those 3 items into different variables, reverse coded variables. To do this, we're going to go to Transform and recode into different variables. And the variables we need are 2, 4, and 6. And the way I get them to select without selecting everything is I hold the Control or Command key down while I'm selecting them. And I can put these into the numeric variable, output variable box. And I need to give them new names because they're being recoded into different variables. I'm going to call each one its same name, but then with the letter R at the end for reverse, to remind me that it's reverse coded. And I'm putting the label there too, just so that I have it in one place in the data file later. Oops. Need to put the R on there. And OP6R. All right, now they all have new names, but they need their new values. And in reverse coding, I have to pay attention to that this particular scale, its items, went from 1 to 5, and not all of them do. This one goes from 1 to 7, this one goes from 1 to 4, and that matters if any of those items need to be reverse coded. But for Optimism scale, they go 1 to 5. So that means something that used to be a 1 is now going to be a 5. I put a 1 in the old value, is going to be a new value 5, and I hit add. Anything that used to be a 2 is going to be a 4. Add Anything that used to be a 3 is going to stay a 3. 4, 2, and 5 becomes a 1. Now, it's easy to see that you have it all together there because one side, the old values go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the new values go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's ready to go. And now we're ready to say OK. In our output, at the very bottom, after it's done, you see all the stuff where we were cleaning. We have the last thing we've done is recode OP2, OP4, and OP6 with these changes into new variables called OP2R, OP4R, OP6R. And we also gave them new variable labels. And then it ends with execute. And starting with Lab 2, I'll have y'all start working more with syntax, but this is what the syntax looks like embedded into our output file. All right, now that we have our reverse coded items, we're ready to run internal consistency to find out the internal reliability of these items. How well do they hang together? So we're going to go to Analyze, and then Scale and Reliability Analysis. And here, we want all the items that go into the total optimism scale. So we're going to want OP1, 3, and 5. But then we're going to go to the bottom and get OP2, 4, and 6 because we want the reverse coded items there. Put in a label for the scale. So this is the total optimism scale. And then you want to make sure that the model is alpha because we're doing Cronbach's alpha here. In the statistics box, we want to grab some items here. We want descriptives for the item. And let's get the scale and the scale if item is deleted. In the enter item area, let's get the correlations. And in the summaries area, we'll get correlations. All right, then we're ready to hit continue and OK. So now we have some information. And it's good that we have the scale name there because when you're doing a lot of Cronbach's alpha evaluation for different scales, they start all piling up together in the output and it's hard to figure out which one's which. So it's good to put your label there. So the Cronbach's alpha is 797. You're looking for at least 0.7. As long as you have a 0.7 or better, you know that the items hang pretty well together. Then let's take a look down here at enter item total statistics and this column, Cronbach's alpha if item deleted. What this is telling us is that if we did not include OP1 in the total scale score, then the total scale would have an alpha of 789, which is less than 797. So taking OP1 out would mean that our Cronbach's alpha, our internal reliability or consistency, was decreased. Now, all of these are above 0.7 anyway, so it's no big deal, but it is something to note that if you have an item that is not hanging well with the others, it might not should be part of the total scale score. But for total optimism, it looks like we're fine. So what we'll do next is compute the total scale score for total optimism. To do this, we go to transform, compute variable. In your target variable, we want to name this the same as what's in the code book. So our codebook says total optimism is going to have the SPS name of TOP-TIM. And we need to add all the scores from OP1 to OP6, but remember, some of those are reverse scored. So here we go. In the target variable area, we want to give the name. And in the label, total optimism. Continue. Now what the codebook told us is that all the items are going to be summed together to make this scale level variable. So we want to go in our function group, go down to the one called statistical. When you grab that, you have some functions that are part of that function group. We want sum because we want to total all of the items together. When you double click sum, it's going to jump up here to your numeric expression with the question marks in place for the variables that we want to put in there. So we want OP1, and then for the next question mark, I'll put OP3. And notice how they have commas in between. So I'll just add a comma and then put OP5, comma, and now I want our reverse coded ones from below. There we go. And all we're going to see here in the output is that it was run. But if we go back to our data, our variable view, and we scroll all the way down, we have those new variables we've been making, the reverse coded items and our new total optimism score. And we do want to indicate that this is going to be scale level. Okay, so we'll do one more. We're going to do total life satisfaction. In our codebook, we see that total life satisfaction, we want to have items LifeSat 1 to LifeSat 5, and there's no reverse scores. But first we want to check Cronbach's alpha on this. So back to Cronbach's alpha is analyze, scale, reliability analysis. And notice how it has our information from before. We can just get rid of all that by hitting reset. Now we can give it its new name, total LifeSat, and go get the LifeSat items, 1, and now I'll hold the shift key because I want all of the ones in between. And that way I get from the beginning to the end. And I can throw them over there. In statistics, we want item. I think I'm going to skip scale because I really want this one. And we'll get correlations and correlations. And OK. So here we have total LifeSat scale. It's coming in with a Cronbach's alpha of 890, which is really high. And out of the item total statistics, Cronbach's alpha, if item was deleted, the only one that gives any benefit, like LifeSat 5, if it was not included, Cronbach's alpha would increase from 890 to 896. So again, all of these are above 0.7 anyway, so I'm not going to not include any of these items, but this tells us that that particular item, LifeSat 5, might be measuring something just a little bit different than LifeSat 1 through 4. Okay, to compute the total LifeSat scale, again, we want to add. So we're going to sum. It's not always add. Sometimes you're putting together a skill level variable that you want the mean of instead of sum. So you want to pay attention to what directions are provided for creating the skill level score. Okay, we want to add. We'll go back to SPSS, transform, compute variable. And again, we can reset this so we don't have anything in there that we don't want. And this name is going to be T LifeSat. The label, total LifeSat disfunction. In the function group, we want statistical because that's where sum is. Double click sum. And we're going to want the LifeSat items with commas in between. There we go. Okay. And then we'll have our new LifeSat variable here at the bottom. So we want to, at this point, save the data set. Make sure you have a completed data set here. Also, save your output file. Make sure it's got all of your information in there. And we are finished with the SPSS part. So what did we accomplish here? Well, we navigated in a new interface. The SPSS set some defaults up so that we can be able to see the variable names easily and work with them as we're moving through the different labs in the series. We imported a CSV data file, which is comma separated values. And we evaluated the item level values for their internal consistency on if they would do well hanging together as a skill level variable. And we created a couple of skill level variables. So, good job. See you next time.